Okay, let's dive into this stack of sources we have here. Articles, research, our own notes, all zeroed in on the football matches scheduled for May 31st, 2025.
Yeah, it's a pretty packed day, isn't it? We've got everything from the absolute peak of European club football.
Right, the Champions League final.
Exactly. All the way down to some really interesting dynamics playing out in the Scandinavian leagues.
And our mission for this deep dive, as always, is to just cut straight to the chase. We're here to pull out the most important insights, the tactical bits, the key predictions.
Basically, we want you to walk away feeling properly clued in about the day's football without having to wade through absolutely everything yourself.
Think of it as getting those essential nuggets, maybe a few aha moments that really stand out from all this material.
Hopefully, yeah.
So where else could we possibly start but with the biggest one? The UEFA Champions League final on May 31st.
Munich Football Arena. And it's Paris Saint-Germain against Inter Milan, which, right off the bat, is interesting. Well, one thing that jumped out from the sources is this is the first final since, 2004? That doesn't have a team from England, Spain, or Germany.
Wow, that long, okay.
Yeah. So some are suggesting it might signal a bit of a shift, maybe, in the European power balance, at least for this season.
That's a fascinating stat to kick us off. So let's look at the clubs. PSG. This feels like it's all been building up to this for them, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. They're chasing that first ever Champions League title. It's only their second final.
They lost the first one in 2020.
Right. And now they've just done the domestic double Coupe de France, League One. So the pressure for the treble must be immense.
Huge pressure. But then you've got Inter. They've got the history, haven't they?
They absolutely do. Aiming for a fourth European crown. You think back to Mourinho in 2010, that famous win.
And they were just here, weren't they? The 2023 final against City.
Exactly. And the sources really lean into this. That loss, the pain of Istanbul, as one article called it, it's framed as this huge learning experience.
So maybe a mental edge this time, knowing what to expect.
Potentially. Yeah. It could help them manage the pressure, definitely. Although, that kind of pain could also be a weight. It cuts both ways.
True. And let's not forget the other stuff, the money, the spot in the UEFA Super Cup. It's massive on every level.
Now, here's something that really stood out from the reading, the head-to-head record between these two.
Go on.
This will be the first ever official competitive match between PSG and Inter Milan.
Seriously? Between two giants like that? That's amazing.
It is quite something. I mean, sure, they've played friendlies, 6 of them apparently. Inter won one last August, 2-1. But friendlies, they don't tell you much, do they?
Not for a Champions League final, no. So all that usual H2H analysis we love to dig into.
Completely out the window.
Which means it's all down to current form. Tactics. How players match up right now.
Precisely. Which puts even more focus on what Luis Enrique and Simone Inzaghi do on the night. In-game adjustments are going to be absolutely key.
Okay, let's talk about how they got here. Because the sources paint quite different journeys. PSG's is described as battle-hardened.
That's a good way to put it. They had a bit of a shaky start in the group stage, didn't they? Lost 3 games.
Yeah, finished 15th overall, had to go through a playoff.
But then, wow, they seemed to click. That 10-0 aggregate win over Brest was a statement.
And the knockout stages, just relentless. 4 Premier League teams knocked out.
Including Man City, a recent winner, and Liverpool, the English champs.
Plus that tough win against Arsenal, 3-1 aggregate. Dembele's away goal there was massive. That's a serious path to the final.
It really is. Now, compare that to Inter. The sources call their route more straightforward.
Why is that?
Because they were just so good in that initial league phase. Finished 4th, only conceded 1 goal in 8 games.
1 goal? Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah, so they skipped the playoffs entirely.
Yeah.
Dealt with Feyenoord pretty comfortably, were described as insurmountable against Bayern.
Strong words.
And then that semi against Barcelona, a real classic Final Four battle, one source called it, went to extra time, 7-6 aggregate. Azerbi's late goal proving crucial.
So their journey really highlights that defensive strength they have.
Exactly. Consistency and resilience, especially at the back.
So these different paths lead us nicely into the tactical side of things. The sources frame it as a clash of contrasting football philosophies.
Yeah, that sums it up well. You've got Luis Enrique's PSG, probably a 4-3-3. Their style. It's described as free-flowing, attacking, dynamic midfield, explosive front three.
The stats back that up, right? High possession.
Loads of it, like 68, 69% on average. They strike fast, take a lot of shots, over 18 per game. Tons of corners, too, over 100 in the campaign.
But the potential weakness, that defense can get exposed sometimes.
That's the trade-off, yeah. Clean sheet rate only around 21%, one source noted.
Okay, so how does Inter counter that? Inzaghi's 3-5-2.
Right, and their strengths are almost the mirror image. It's all about discipline, tactical organization, being robust defensively. They're good on set pieces, quick transitions, very mature, adaptable side.
And the defensive numbers are starkly different.
Hugely. 8 clean sheets in the Champions League, conceding less than a goal per game, 0.79. Clean sheet rates cited anywhere from 42 to 58%. They do it with less ball, around 59% possession, and fewer shots, under 14 per game.
So it's that classic irresistible force versus immovable object cliche, basically.
It really is shaping up that way,
Oh.
according to the analysis. PSG's attack against Inter's defense.
Which points towards a tight game, low scoring.
That's the strong suggestion. Inter's 3-5-2 is built to frustrate teams like PSG, deny space. It probably won't be wide open, more likely decided by a moment of brilliance, maybe a set piece, a late goal.
Not just wave after wave of attack breaking through.
Probably not sustained waves, no. The midfield battle will be huge, obviously, and the keepers Donnarumma and Sommer could easily be match winners.
Okay, let's zoom in on some individuals. Who are the sources highlighting as the potential difference makers?
For PSG, Ousmane Dembele's name comes up a lot, called decisive. His 2025 form has been just electric.
What are the numbers?
Involved in 46 goals, 33 scored, 13 assists, scoring roughly every 92 minutes he's on the pitch. He's seen as a big game player, someone who can just change things on his own.
And the new guy, Kvaratskhelia, January signing.
Yeah, arguably the best signing of the window, one piece said. Slotted straight in, 4 goals, 6 assists already. He's maybe their most purely talented player, capable of something special out of nowhere.
Okay, over to Inter. Lautaro Martinez, the captain.
He's had an incredible season. His link-up with Thuram is mentioned as a big factor. He's their top scorer in Europe, 9 goals, came back from a knock for the semifinal. Apparently, this is the one major trophy he hasn't won with Inter, so he'll be incredibly fired up.
And there's a personal story with Achraf Hakimi at PSG too, right?
Yeah, facing his old club. He was part of that Inter team that won Serie A in 2021, scored that massive goal against Arsenal in the semis, too.
And he'll be up against his replacement at Inter.
Denzel Dumfries, yeah. That battle on the right flank between Hakimi and Dumfries, former versus current Inter player, that's a really juicy subplot.
Definitely one to watch. And the keepers, you mentioned them, Donnarumma and Sommer.
Both vital, both capable of those game-defining saves. And Donnarumma, well, he has that penalty shootout reputation, doesn't he? Always something in the back of your mind in a final.
What about injuries? How are the squads looking based on the latest reports?
PSG seem relatively okay. Kimpembe is the main one out, long-term Achilles, but they've been dealing with that. Kvaratskhelia had a minor scare, apparently, but should be fine.
So their core team is intact. The main decisions are tactical.
Seems like it, yeah. Like choosing between Doué or Barcola out wide, it suggests the main structure is healthy.
And Inter's situation?
Described as particularly strong. Very few doubts, it seems. Key players like Martinez, Frattesi, Pavard, Zielinski, all expected back or available. Only Carboni, the youngster, mentioned as out.
So pretty much full strength for Inzaghi.
Looks like it. And the sources really highlight this. That depth, that flexibility. It's called a subtle yet decisive advantage. Could be absolutely massive, especially if it goes to extra time.
Let's quickly revisit those stats we touched on because they really paint the picture the sources describe.
Yeah, look at the contrast again.
Yeah.
PSG, more games played, more goals overall, way more shots, loads more corners, just sheer volume.
But Inter?
Much more efficient defensively. Concede far fewer goals per match, keep way more clean sheets. And they do this even though they have less of the ball and actually make fewer successful tackles, according to some stats.
So PSG create a lot of noise and attack, maybe? But Inter are just better at stopping that noise from turning into actual goals.
That's exactly the picture the numbers paint. It really reinforces why everyone expects a tight, cagey game. Inter's defense is seen as good enough to handle PSG's volume. Goals will likely be at a premium.
Okay, wrapping up the Champions League final thoughts. What's the general feeling from the experts, the betting markets?
Well, PSG are definitely the clear favorites. You see that in the odds around 2.25 just to win in 90 minutes, 1.65 to lift the trophy eventually.
And Inter are the underdogs.
Clearly. Around 3.30 for the win, 2.2 to lift it.
Yeah. What about the goals market? Confirms the low scoring prediction.
Oh yeah, very strong consensus there. Under 3.5 goals is a very popular bet. Odds are low, like 1.25. One source made the point that none of the last 6 finals have seen more than 2 goals.
History backs it up then. Any other common tips?
PSG over 5.5 corners pops up. which fits with their attacking style we discussed. But the main theme is, as one analysis put it, a tactical chess match, probably decided by a moment of brilliance or a late goal.
Okay, makes sense. The market clearly respects Inter's defense in this final environment.
Right, so now let's completely change gears from that huge global spectacle
to the nitty-gritty of the Scandinavian leagues. Same day, May 31st, across Finland, Norway, and Sweden, our sources really went deep here too.
They certainly did. When you look across all these different matches and leagues, some interesting patterns start to emerge.
Yeah. Like what recurring themes did you pick up on?
Well, one thing I found quite striking was how often recent form, and especially home advantage, seem to trump other factors in the predictions.
More than, say, where a team is in the league table. Or even their head-to-head history.
Sometimes, yeah. The analysis seems to weigh that current momentum or playing at home really heavily in certain cases. Another thing, both teams to score, BTTS, is predicted so often.
Right, you see that everywhere.
And it's not just random. It suggests the analysts see attacking potential or maybe defensive weaknesses on both sides in a lot of these games. Even if one team looks stronger on paper, they still expect the other team to likely score.
And you mentioned sometimes the favorite isn't necessarily flying, it's just that their opponent is struggling even more, particularly in lower table games.
Exactly. The advantage comes from the other team's problems, maybe a leaky defense or terrible recent results, rather than the favorite being dominant themselves. And we see that efficiency versus volume thing again, like in the CL. Some teams score goals but concede easily, others are tighter defensively but maybe create less.
Okay, let's look at some examples. Finland, Veikkausliiga. KTP versus IFK Mariehamn. Lower table clash. KTP pick as favorites. But their form sounds awful.
It is. 1 win in 8, no home wins all season, 0 clean sheets. But the sources point to a very recent friendly win they had against Mariehamn, and this feeling that KTP are just desperate for a home win.
So short-term results, psychology almost, overriding the stats.
Seems like in this case. And again, BTTS is seen as likely, so Mariehamn are still expected to get on the score sheet.
Then a big one. HJK Helsinki versus KPS, top clash. KPS are actually leading the league, but HJK are favored.
Yep. Perfect example of recent form taking precedence.
Yeah.
HJK are flying 4 wins, 1 draw in their last 5. Plus, they tend to dominate KPS historically.
So momentum and history win out over current league position here.
That's the analysis. And they expect goals. High BTTS chance, over 2.5 goals likely. HJK's aggressive style mentioned, KPS can score 2, despite a couple of injuries.
Let's hop over to Norway, the elite Syrian. Strømsgodset against HamKam, another one in the bottom half. Strømsgodset strongly favored, but again, their form isn't great.
1 win in 5, no recent home wins. But the key here is HamKam are seen as even worse off, especially defensively, conceding over 2 goals a game.
So it's relative weakness again?
Pretty much. Strømsgodset score more, have a recent H2H win, and guess what? High BTTS and over 2.5 expected again. Suggests Strømsgodset's defense isn't watertight either.
And Tromsø versus Vålerenga.
Tromsø favored. Better recent form, higher in the table, and Vålerenga has some key injuries, mentioned Bully and Beardall, but...
Let me guess. BTTS and over 2.5.
You got it. Even with Vålerenga's issues, the analysts think they've still got enough about them to trouble Tromsø's defense.
Okay, down a level to the Norwegian second tier, OBOS-ligaen. Lillestrøm versus Egersund. Lillestrøm are a top, unbeaten, amazing defense.
Yeah, conceding only 0.38 goals per game. That's incredible. They're heavily favored, obviously.
Surely not BTTS here, with that defense.
Surprisingly, yes. BTTS is still predicted. It shows respect for Egersund's attack. They score about 1.7 goals per game themselves. The feeling is they might just find a way through, even against Lillestrøm.
That's interesting. Okay, Stabæk versus Kongsvinger. Stabæk favored. But Kongsvinger are higher in the league and in better form. What gives?
History. Stabæk apparently have a dominant historical record against Kongsvinger. The sources talk about a potential psychological edge or maybe a tactical mismatch that just works for Stabæk in this fixture, regardless of current form.
Fascinating. So past results are the key driver there. Still expecting goals, though.
High BTTS predicted again. Yeah. So even if history points to Stabæk, it could still be an open, high-scoring match.
Right. Sweden, Allsvenskan. AFD Elfsborg versus Hammarby IF, top half game. Elfsborg favored, even though Hammarby are on an unbeaten run.
Yeah, this seems to be about Elfsborg's incredible recent form, 7 wins in their last 8, and their strong home record. It's a clash of styles, too. Elfsborg score more, Hammarby defend better.
And the prediction leans towards
a home win for Elfsborg. Momentum and home turf seem to be the deciding factors in the analysis.
Then IFK Norrköping versus GAIS. Here, GAS are favored, despite Norrköping being higher in the table and scoring more on average.
This one seems to hinge on defense. GAIS have a much better defensive record, concede just over a goal a game, compared to nearly 1.8 for Norrköping. GAIs are also unbeaten recently.
And the prediction reflects that defensive strength.
Exactly. Under 2.5 goals is predicted here. Suggests GAI's tighter defense will control the game, leading to a low-scoring affair that favors them.
And finally, the Swedish second tier, the Superettan, Utsikten BK versus Kalmar FF. Kalmar are top great defense.
Yeah, this looks like one of the more straightforward ones.
Yeah.
Kalmar FF are league leaders, concede only 0.4 goals per game, 70% clean sheets. Prediction is just a solid Kalmar win. Moneyline bet suggested.
Simple enough. Urgreit IS versus Trelleborg's FF, top versus bottomish.
Urgreit heavily favored. High position, great form, much better stats all around, scoring loads, conceding little. Trelleborgs apparently have a 0% BTTS rate in some samples mentioned.
0%. Wow.
Yeah, points towards a dominant Urgreit win.
Okay, last one. Sandvikens IF versus Varberg's Boy FC. This one was flagged as interesting. Sandvikens favored, but Varbergs are higher in the league and have better stats.
Exactly. This is one where the analysis provided seems to go against the obvious numbers. Varbergs score more, concede fewer, are higher placed, yet Sandvikens are tipped.
So maybe valuing home advantage massively, or some hidden factor?
Could be, or maybe a specific tactical view. But it's presented as a prediction from the source material that really makes you look twice, highlighting that it's not always just about the basic stats.
Wow. Okay. That really is a packed day of football then, from the very top right down through these Scandinavian leagues.
It absolutely is. And hopefully going through all that gives you a much clearer picture of what's actually driving these matches, beyond just the fixture list.
Yeah, we've unpacked that tactical chess match we expect in the Champions League final, with Inter's injury situation maybe being a quiet advantage.
Right. And then seeing those patterns in Scandinavia, how much recent form, home advantage, sometimes even ancient history can sway predictions, and just how often goals are expected at both ends.
It definitely gives you a deeper feel for the stats, the tactics, even the psychology behind these games, much more than a simple preview does.
That's the idea. Arm you with a bit more insight.
So here's a final thought, something for you to maybe mull over as you watch these games play out. Given how often we've talked about tactical discipline, defensive strength, Inter in the final, GAIS, Kalmar in Sweden being highlighted as crucial, does that suggest modern football is leaning more towards preventing goals than scoring them?
That's a great question. Or maybe thinking about those Scandinavian games, where sometimes current momentum or a specific H2H record seems to count for more than season-long consistency in the predictions. How much does that short-term factor really matter compared to a team's fundamental quality shown over time?
Definitely something to chew on.